Welcome to the Virtual Concert Hall's live show. Today's show is particularly for those who are in Latin America or are, like me, very interested in having the opportunity to perform there and to make an impact. My guests tonight, Irma de Jong, Catherine Barrow, and Gisela Flanigan will enlighten me, and hopefully you as well, with their experiences, stories, and their wonderful insights. And so with that, let's get the show rolling. Hello and welcome to the Virtual Concert Hall's live show. My name is Chris Au. I am co-host and social media manager of the Sound Específico Global Competition at Virtual Concert Halls. And today we have a very exciting show. We have 3 guests on and I'll introduce them one by one. My first guest is a very dear person to the Sound Específico Global Competition, and she is the Executive Director of Classlcal Academy, who has sponsored many prizes for our competitors. Irma de Jong is the Managing Director and founder of Cicero Music and Art. She works in the classical music field for almost 30 years, starting as PR and marketing assistant at the Limburg Symphony Orchestra in the Netherlands. Irma has collaborated with many renowned artists and orchestras. As a project manager, she organized various cultural projects such as violin competitions, art exhibitions, music events, and festivals. These multiple experiences with different working teams created her curiosity for generation management and audience development. It is her passion to network together with different age groups and to look for fruitful working methods. Irma's mission is to shape sustainable music projects with a focus on online education. She is strongly involved in e-learning and created an online self-management course for musicians. And this is one of the courses that is particularly important to her. And she is also the Executive Director of Classlcal Academy, an online teaching classical music platform active since 2015. And this is one of the prizes that we'll be giving out at the Sound Específico Global Competition. Irma holds a business diploma from the Hansa College in Zwolle. She studied and received her certificates in linguistics and musicology at the Dutch Open University of Erlen and has obtained her public relations and marketing diploma at the Dutch Institution for Marketing. So, Irma, welcome to the show. You've been here before. Thank you so much for your support of the Sound Específico competition.
Hi, Chris, and thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. I'm really impressed. You even managed to say Zwolle in the right way.
Zwolle, yeah.
Yes, it's so great.
I think a lot of languages you have to pronounce all the letters, and some languages like French you pronounce very little of them. So
yes, no, but you did a great job. I'm really
that's
impressed.
Very kind of you. Where
so
are you
much.
coming to us from? Where are you coming to us from?
I am right now in Italy, Lago Maggiore, Arona, wonderful place at the lake, beautiful views, and I enjoy very much to kayak on the lake, and that's one of my favorite hobbies here in Italy.
Wonderful. I love kayak. We'll have to talk about this after the show. This is,
yes,
I didn't know you kayak in the lake. That sounds amazing. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm going to introduce our next guest, who is Catherine Barrow, who also goes by Kathy. And she fell in love with classical music at the age of 6. And from that point on, there was no turning back for her. At the age of 15, she performed with the youth orchestra in Carnegie Hall while she was studying with the principal second violin of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And from there, moved to NYC to study with the world-famous Dorothy Delay. She moved to Mexico after college and fell in love with the people as well as the country. She has spent the last 20 years as a travel agent for musicians all over the world. She's taken Mexican orchestras to the US as well as Egypt and China. She has spent the last 5 years working ways to thank Mexico and Mexicans for all the wonderful things the Mexican people have done for her over the years. She joined the BNI Toluca of the state of Mexico in 2016 and has since been working with BNI Toluca to help with fundraising projects to help underprivileged children find a way to earn a living in a country filled with music. This is such a wonderful initiative. I'm so happy to introduce Catherine Barrow. Let's bring her on. Hello, Kathy.
Really nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so lovely to have you. So tell us, where are you coming to us from?
Outside of Mexico City. I'm about an hour outside of Mexico City up. We're about 9,000 feet high or 3,000 meters, however you want to measure it. So it's always cold here. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, lovely. And how long have you been living where you're at?
35 years.
35 years. Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'll really look forward to talking to you. We also have a clip of Kathy's playing, so a lot to look forward to in this show. With that, let me introduce the third guest, and my final guest is Dr. Gisela Flanigan. She's a social entrepreneur and consultant advocating for the arts. She is deeply committed to social change and collective impact as a social entrepreneur in the non-profit world. There's a lot that is in common with our guests tonight in the non-profit world. She currently serves as executive director of Sistema Global, an award-winning social change organization inspired by Maestro Barrows, you have to correct my pronunciation of that, Gisela, vision of expanding access to music making as a basic human right. Under her leadership, Sistema Global has been honored to be a part of the 100 Global Education in Innovation Collection since 2020 for 3 years in a row. Dr. Flanigan's field of expertise is the intersection of leadership, management, and advocacy in the arts. It's very important for musicians. Dr. Flanigan has been invited to review programs and grants for organizations such as the National Endowment for the Arts, the Creative Industries, and she is also a 100 Academy member and a 100 Advisory Board member, invited to be a part of the review team for the 100 Spotlight on Teachers for a Changing World in partnership with the World Bank Group. I promise you I'm not saying 100 wrong. It's 100 with ED capitalized at the end. So she regularly speaks at national and international conferences for organizations such as the Sphinx Connect, College Music Society, and the Music, Business and Peace Summit at Indiana University. She is also a member of the International Music Education Policy Group, England, advancing global policy dialogue in music education. That's a lot that she's doing. It's incredible. She presently is part of the faculty at the University of Denver Arts and Culture Management program. Dr. Flanigan earned a Bachelor of Music and Master of Music degrees from the University of Miami under the tutelage of Rosalina Sachstein, a disciple of Claudio Arrau, the legendary pianist, and is therefore able to trace her music lineage back through Franz Liszt to Ludwig van Beethoven himself. Dr. Flanigan holds a Doctor of Musical Arts degree in piano performance from the University of North Texas. She is currently a faculty member at the University of Denver Arts and Culture Management Program, as well as serving as Executive Director of Sistema Global. Gisela, thank you so much for joining us. It's incredible that you've done so much, and not just in terms of piano performance and playing music, but also in the non-profit world. It's very inspiring. So thank you for joining us.
I'm honored to be part of this wonderful panel. Thank you so much for inviting me.
No, it's my pleasure. So where are you coming to us from? Are you coming from Denver? Is that where you...
No, actually, I'm from a smaller town called Grand Junction, and it's in Colorado, beautiful Colorado. So...
Wow, wonderful.
It's still sunny out here.
Yeah, it definitely looks it. Yeah, I love the glow that's coming in from your window.
Yes.
So I want to actually start with you, Gisela, if you don't mind. I want you to, if you could introduce to us what's Sistema Global and how did you get started with this work after college, and perhaps if you could tell us how this is related to El Sistema, which is something that's quite, from what I know, came from Venezuela and has impacted loads of musicians there.
Yes. Well, first of all, I am the executive director of Sistema Global, which is a worldwide network of El Sistema-inspired programs and supporters. And we're all working together to advance youth empowerment with social change through the power of music. So we are inspired by Maestro Barrows' initial idea that began in the 1970s in Venezuela. And I was part of the program. My whole family, my siblings were part of the program since we were children. So I have seen the program from the very beginning. I am dating myself, but
Oh, are you from Venezuela? Is that how you were involved?
Yes, I was born in
Wonderful.
Venezuela. Yes. So I was able, as a pianist, I was able to make chamber music from a very early age with the music and the orchestra members of the youth symphonies that they grew up and now they are the leaders of the El Sistema program, not only in Venezuela but worldwide.
That's amazing. It's amazing what you're doing in the non-profit world there. Kathy, I also know that you're quite involved in non-profit work and philanthropy where you're at. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and how you've been doing this for the last probably 20 to 30 years?
Well, here in Mexico, it's interesting because private chamber music almost doesn't exist, and so I've had to create it from scratch. And so it's really interesting because the good news is that I have no competition. The bad news is that I don't have many places to play, and so to find places to play has been the interesting part of all of this. But once I do find places to play, I can usually fill them very, very easily. And I've done a lot of work for Rotary. And there's a wonderful foundation here in my city called Vemos con el Corazón. We see with our hearts, and it's a community of blind people. And it teaches young children who are blind to have a career in spite of the fact that they're blind. It's a wonderful
amazing.
foundation. Yeah.
So I know on your YouTube, and everyone should check out Kathy's YouTube when you get a chance, you have lots of performances of string quartets. And so can you tell us a little bit about why there, first of all, are difficulties in finding places to play, and yet when you do find them, there's a huge demand seemingly for concerts?
Well, that's an interesting question. I've been doing this project with the quartet probably for about 5 years now. And I do absolutely everything. I do the graphic design, all the publicity to pull people in. I work a lot now with the French Alliance, and I work with private buildings to bring people in. The original idea of this quartet, it's really funny, it's perfect for these days, is I take symphony pieces and I find amazing arrangements of them, and I bring them to people who've never heard a symphony orchestra. So I have arrangements of Beethoven 5 and Scheherazade. If you check out the page, there's actually you can hear the recordings of that Scheherazade. We did one concert with Beethoven 1, 5, 7, and 9, various movements of each of those on one concert. And so people who come to these concerts, they've never heard a real symphony orchestra, but they kind of know the melodies. And so it's very interesting to play them for those. I had 3 standing ovations for the Beethoven concert that we did. It was really fun.
That's incredible.
So,
and are you finding yourself having to talk about these pieces before you perform them, like in ways of introducing?
I studied speaking in public for about 3 years because it's you all know that it's really hard to play. I mean, it's really hard to talk and then play. It's a different part of your brain completely.
Absolutely.
And so what I've done is the talks that I give in my concerts aren't, Beethoven was born in such and such a time. My Beethoven concert is actually, what do Beethoven and Bill Gates have in common? And the answer for me is that Beethoven was a better business person. And a lot of people who go to concerts are business people. And so we discuss what that's like. And then I hand out pictures of the caricatures that they made of Beethoven when he was going deaf. And I ask people how they would feel if they saw that happening, and what kind of music would they write. And so that's kind of what I do. So, for example, for Haydn, I say, well, yeah, I wouldn't say it was Haydn. I would say there's this child, and he's the thing he remembers about his childhood is that he was hungry most of the time and how terrible his clothes smelled. And then he got this job that he wasn't really happy with. And what kind of music would he write? And then I play a really happy Haydn string quartet. And so I say that your destiny it cannot be influenced by your past. And so I don't really talk about the composers. I talk more about their experiences and how that relates to us.
That's incredibly inspiring. I really love that presentation and way of doing a concert. Irma, speaking of business and Bill Gates, and you've done a lot with PR and managing people and artists. Can you speak a little bit about what you've heard so far from Gisela and Kathy, and maybe your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, it's very interesting to hear Kathy saying that she's doing everything herself, which is already pretty impressive because I know how hard that is, that you have to prepare the music and the concerts, and then you have to do the publicity, the promotion, and the marketing, and the selling of the tickets, etc. So that's really a hard job. I think it's part of being a musical or cultural a cultural entrepreneur, and it's also something that today it's more taught in conservatories and schools. But there was a time, and I'm not speaking about so many years ago, that it was really difficult to convince people in conservatories and schools that they should really activate their students and start talking about these subjects, because it's so important. If you want to achieve something, if you want to bring your music forth into the world, you cannot longer anymore rely on managers. That's really something from the past, in my view. So I'm happy to hear Kathy talking about these experiences. I know it's not an easy thing, and I also know it makes you a more all-round person. And especially when you talk about, being on stage, talking to the audience loves this. They love to have a different kind of conversation also with the artist, but it's not easy, and not every musician is able to do it. But what I find also encouraging, Kathy, is that you said it took you 3 years to learn it. So it's like, a skill, and you can learn it. And if you have the mental ability to decide that you want to learn it, I think this brings you already very far.
It's incredible, and you've really summed up what I really admire about Kathy's work. And Gisela, I want to bring you to the conversation and ask, how have you as a pianist and managing, after having done your studies, how did you get started with Sistema Global, and how are your concerts, and how's managing the performance side and presenting concerts? You're also a social entrepreneur. How have you been doing this with your audiences? Are you doing more work back in Latin America, or are you trying to move people where you're at in the United States?
It's a conversation, and it happens wherever I am. I have gone back to Venezuela and given presentations, and they were kind of like Kathy's style. It's interesting how we have that in common, in which it was talking about not just how the compositions were written, because that can be boring to somebody who's not a professional musician, but what it means, what the composition meaning, emotional meaning that they all have. That's what we have in common, emotions. And I always touch that, and I make that connection. Whether it's back in Venezuela when I used to give master classes and concerts there, or here in my community. And I have lived in different cities in the country, in the United States. So I kept myself active performing too.
Wow. I'm curious to know, because a lot of your education is in the United States, Gisela, how do you find, and also with Kathy, your education has been in the United States too, how have you found that education, have you found it useful in bringing music to people in Latin America? Or if you don't, or you do, what are some of the tips you would say for people like maybe myself? I've never been to Latin America. How would you recommend people to start to share their music with people in Latin America?
You want to go? You go first.
You go, Gisela, you can go first, and then Kathy.
Okay. I know that Venezuela is going through hard times right now, but I can tell you that for the last 3 generations, the people, not only the musicians, but their parents and their relatives, because that's part of the El Sistema vision, to bring in the family so that they can join us making music and learning about music, whether it's classical music or popular music, or the connection between both. When we have had guest musicians come from the United States or other countries come and give master classes and all of that. Sometimes you have seen them talking very basically, as if we don't know much, and it's interesting to see the kids' faces thinking, I already know that. Give me something new.
Yeah.
So what I would say, do not underestimate your audience in Latin America, because most of them are very much connected with classical music in their own way, whether they perform or they play instruments as they were young. Notice that El Sistema it has a long tradition. It's many decades. So you actually have 2 or 3 generations of people that are being exposed to music constantly. Whether they're poor or rich, it's irrelevant. So again, don't underestimate your audience, because we are opening our hearts to you as you perform to us. but we also want to be respected, you know, and learn even more from you, because you have specific fields, you know.
I love that. No, thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. A lot of people may forget that musicians like Daniel Barenboim and Marta Argerich were born in Latin America. And, you know, and so if they studied there, and so they're teachers, and there's a big community that have listened to and have loved and appreciated classical music for a very long time. Irma, I want to take this time to talk to you a little bit because of your work with our Classlcal Academy and Sistema Global. Maybe what we could do is actually start with playing a video, and this is a new course called Violin Tango course, and maybe you could introduce it and then we'll play it. And it's a new thing that our Classlcal Academy is doing. Could you talk a little bit about it?
Yes, of course I can. So the Violin for Tango, actually it was recorded almost a year ago in Buenos Aires through an ensemble, Estación Buenos Aires, with some very fine violinists, Rafael Gintoli and Xavier Weintraub. Probably I don't say the Xavier right, but okay, Xavier Weintraub. And this whole project was initiated by a good friend of mine, Gabriela Olcese. She's a violinist in Buenos Aires, also at Teatro Colón, and she's part of this Estación Buenos Aires also. And they recorded all of this in a very cute little theater in Buenos Aires, very original. It was really meant to sort of celebrate also the 100-year anniversary of Piazzolla, of course. And it was their idea to bring the tango history and one of the most known, but also the lesser known composers of tango into this course, which is really a course that has everything, all the elements. So the origin of the tango, and also there's a big explanation about immigrants from Europe that were coming to Latin America in, the beginning of the 1900s and even later, and bringing this music and bringing new influences. And that's a very interesting element, I think, also if you put it in the context of the current world where we have so many people leaving their country and trying to find a better place elsewhere. So all of this together is it has become a wonderful course. It's also extended with some -1 video, so you can, as a violinist, you can play along with the ensemble. The violinist was taken out. Nice. It has a lot of really fun elements also.
That's lovely. Okay, well let's watch this video and then we can talk a little bit about it together too.
es un instrumento que, por su cantabilidad, por su paleta sonora, fue incluido en el tango como un gran advenimiento.
La década del 50 y del 70 es un periodo de cambio estructural bastante grande en la Argentina, y desde lo artístico y desde lo cultural se vio nutrido de mucho músico inmigrante, de mucho artista inmigrante, que le dio, sobre todo al tango, una transformación y un crecimiento, sobre todo en lo melódico y en lo armónico.
Y el tercero es el látigo, son los glissando, que se puede hacer en forma única, o sea, con una sola cuerda, con una sola voz. En la medida en que el violín va integrando distintas agrupaciones que se van ampliando hasta convertirse en la famosa orquesta típica de tango, el violín va interpretando distintos roles que los hace ya en una forma constante e interactiva con todos los demás miembros de su agrupación.
Escuchar ejemplos sobre cómo se incluye este instrumento en formaciones como los cuartetos, violín, piano, bandoneón y contrabajo, y los quintetos, violín, piano, bandoneón, contrabajo y guitarra.
Esta pieza tan característica, tan mundialmente famosa, tan requerida, tan sentida, recordemos que hasta nuestra hoy reina máxima, el día que se casó en Holanda, pidió que la tocaran en su casamiento.
That's wonderful. Wow. So my first question for all three of you, because I have not, have you danced the tango before? What is your relationship with the tango? And I know, Kathy, you also play a little bit tango. We'll have that clip later on. So
Yeah.
yes. So Kathy, have you danced the tango? What's your relationship with the tango?
I've not danced it, but I played it a lot. Yeah.
And you, Gisela?
It's in my list.
Yeah.
But I have played it with another piano, so I've done a lot of piazzolla with another pianist. So it's been a lot of fun. Yes.
Yeah, this is a really fantastic way to teach people, especially overseas. I think Piazzolla has increased in popularity so much over the years. Do you find yourself programming a lot of this music for your audience, Gisela?
Not a lot, but again, when I had the opportunity to be invited to do a 2-piano concert, that was the first thing that I wanted to put in the repertoire. And I was lucky enough to play with a wonderful pianist too, Andrea Arese, and it was so much fun. It brought me back home, so it was amazing.
Yeah. That's wonderful. And Irma, have you danced a tango? Do you have a relationship?
Of course.
Yes?
Of course.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, no, I actually did. We had a master class on how to dance the tango. When we had a festival in Switzerland, we had Rafael Gintoli as a guest. He came with a different quartet, but there was the contrabassist, the bassist player that you saw in this video.
Yeah.
And we also did a master class. It's not so easy, huh? It's really it's something to study. I mean, if you can dance it well, it's fantastic. But it really needs a little bit of effort. What is interesting is that, I mean, now looking back at the video and also the first introductional video that you were playing, it's interesting because it was recorded in Buenos Aires, this whole violin for tango. Then it came to Classlcal, who has its seat in Switzerland, in Europe, and now we actually bring it back to South America because we just concluded a partnership with Allegro HD, the TV channel, which is active in South America, Latin America, and they are available in Argentina and Colombia and Uruguay and Paraguay and Bolivia, and soon also in other countries. But the interesting thing is that we have some of our learning content on iClassical in Spanish, like the violin for tango, but we also have a art of conducting course with an Argentina maestro. And so we started this collaboration also with them, because it's really important to step further, to not only bring it to people in Europe and the US and Asia, but also to go South America. And we're very happy about that. We're also really happy to have this partnership with Sistema Global. And actually, I was told, just to finish this little story, I was told by the coordinator of Allegro HD, Claudia Rojas, that it's really interesting how the classical music is such a strong tool in South America to have it as a social inclusion tool, which is much stronger maybe than how it is in Europe, in the US. I don't know, how do you see this, Gisela? You have the same feeling?
Absolutely, and the El Sistema vision has come to the United States, so we are spreading the word here too. With a lot of wonderful leaders throughout the country. But in Venezuela, it has now history. So as I have mentioned before, so classical music is not only part of the 1 million plus students that they have right now, but the generations before and their parents and literally their neighbors too. So you are affecting with classical music everywhere and everybody, in one way or another.
And with Sistema Global, first of all, can we talk about this partnership between our Classical Academy and Sistema Global a little bit? Would you like to introduce that, Gisela? And also, perhaps, my big question is, what do you find are the benefits for young musicians to learn an instrument, to play in an ensemble, and to learn about the beauty in classical music?
Yes, well, in relationship to our relationship with classical music, it's been wonderful. Irma has been first of all, super patient, so kind. We have so many ideas. I know that we're starting with specific students, but we look forward to benefiting many other students. But it's been a wonderful connection. I forgot how we met, Irma. I think it was through LinkedIn. And when I started
Could be. I also forgot, to tell the truth.
That's all right. I think it was through LinkedIn, and I saw some of the videos, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Because of the online platform, that I could see how we can reach so many people around the globe with very little effort, you know. And that's what attracted me to connect with Irma and Classlcal Academy too. So we look forward to making more connections and spreading the impact to many more countries. So.
Yeah, and what is the impact? And maybe Kathy, you can speak about this a little bit as well. Like, what do you feel like is the impact of being able to bring music to these people?
I think something that you don't, that people don't really realize is that classical music in Mexico, the classical music in the Latin countries is a huge deal. And I would like to go back to something that was commented on before. Never underestimate a Latin country. Never underestimate Latin people, because the people that I work with, I had some of the best education in the world. And these people are amazing musicians without that education. And one of the most incredible things about Latin America is this: I'm going to get this done. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but this is going to work because I'm going to get it done. And it's something that really isn't in first world countries, because it's just a sense of adventure, and it's a sense of creation. And that's what I think classical music is all about, is creating something. And so when you're dealing with Latin musicians, first of all, when you go to a classical concert here, there's an orchestra near where I live, actually, that the concerts are packed all the time. Absolutely all the time. There's no question about, you know, doing more publicity because they're there. The audiences are young. They're much younger here in Mexico than in other countries. So it's kind of like what classical music was in the rest of the world in the 50s and 60s. That's what it's like here. Yeah, it's an adventure.
If you don't mind me asking, on a more personal note, why did you decide to move to Mexico after your studies in Boston and in New York? Why did you decide to go there?
That's actually a funny question, because I went to a conducting summer school because I actually studied conducting, and I decided I didn't want to become a conductor, but I knew a lot of conducting friends, and there were 3 Mexican conductors there. They were young. And they're now 3 of the most famous conductors in the world. And I said, oh, if they're the students, I want to meet the real ones. And that's when they offered me a job, I came.
Wow. And it's just this, did you believe that you'd be there for this long?
I loved it within the first week. I actually knew that I would be staying a long time, because the weather here is absolutely, absolutely perfect. It's just, it's summertime all year round here. You know, it never gets too hot, never gets too cold. It's really nice. And the people are absolutely amazing. Latin people have a sense of enjoying today that a lot of us don't have. Yeah. You know, and so with our system of, especially in New England, or growing up in Massachusetts, when we're always worried about tomorrow and preparing for the future, to be in a society that loves today and still having that preparing for the future, it's like the best of both worlds.
That's really wonderful to hear. I kind of really want to visit now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Gisela, what are your thoughts about this? Because you're kind of on the other spectrum, where you're spending most of your time in the States now, and your home is in Venezuela. What are your thoughts about this transition? And do you want to go back? What is your ideal for you?
Well, I can tell you what happened when I went back after several years of being here in the States. I actually went back with my husband, and who is also a classical musician, and we went back to give master classes, you know, hired by Maestro Barrow, and it was a wonderful experience. But what was amazing to me in my personal experience was that it's not so much that I went to change their lives; they changed my life. Because they reminded me, teaching them and making music with those kids, because they are kids, reminded me the love of music that I used to have, that I had lost because of the academic effort that I had to put through, you know, college, which is good. Master's degree, doctoral degree, you had to study a lot, you had to read a lot, you had to analyze a lot. They reminded me of why I wanted to make music since I was 5 years old. I have forgotten. So I got more from them than they got from me at that point. So I will always be thankful to Maestro Barrow for that invitation, because again, it turned on the light again and said, oh yes, this is why I make music. So
You never forget that here. It's one of the beautiful things about living in. And I would say we have 4 different languages here, right? I think 4 different languages. I don't think there's any other language in the world that has more words for emotion than Spanish does. You can be happy in about 30 different ways, you know. You can't do business as well in Spanish, but you can be emotional in Spanish, and that really comes out in the culture and it comes out in the music.
Oh, Irma, do you have any thoughts about what, coming from Europe and all that? What are your thoughts about all this?
Well, I have to confess that I have never been to Latin America, but I can relate to it very much. I mean, this living in today, what Kathy just described. I can fully understand what it is, and I can also relate to how we maybe in Europe and the States, we lost that because we're always in a hurry, or we are under stress, or we need to do something urgent, and there's never time enough, etc. I think it's also very much related to the kind of conditions you live in. I mean, when you have nice weather, you can stay outside. There is nothing, no rain pouring on your head. It's not cold. There's no wind. You enjoy life. You maybe have a drink. You see a friend and you have a coffee together, and you don't care about, I have my next appointment in 10 minutes. So that's the thing that I can relate to very easily. And what I'm really happy about, but I saw that also in Asia. I saw that in South Korea and Thailand, and maybe also a little bit in China, but less, is that you see so many different generations in a hall when you have a concert, and that's really a joy to see people from 5 years old until 85, and they're all together. And very often here in Europe, especially, the audiences have become a little bit older, which is, I mean, I don't want to give it an opinion or to say that it's bad, but I find it always a joy to see a mixed audience from young age to very old. I think that's the purpose of music, to bring everybody together.
And maybe, Gisela, I'll ask you to respond to that. I have a question for you, which is, do you really think that it has to start from a young age? With this love of music and appreciation and getting audiences there. I mean, I have friends who have kind of fell in love with classical music rather late. You started off, maybe I like kind of like slow piano stuff, and then, I've discovered Chopin, and then I've discovered Rachmaninoff, and then you kind of grow from there. Do you have any thoughts on, do you have to fall in love with music at a young age, and is this how we grow our audience, or is it different depending on where you live?
It's a great question. First of all, based on the El Sistema vision, we train from, there are now programs for when you're in the womb to teach music. So that's how passionate we're about teaching and connecting music to put it together, weave it together within somebody's life as early as possible. It's never too late. We've had musicians that are wonderful. They have worldwide career that started when they were older. And when I say older, I mean 15, 16, You have Gustavo Dudamel, who began since he was very, very little, very small. Mm-hmm. I began when I was 4. I could read music before I could read books, But music becomes a part of your life constantly. It's not like I gotta practice music for 30 minutes once a day and I'm done. No, you're constantly within music. Either you have siblings practicing. I do remember vividly, and I know my brother is not gonna like me sharing this, but I vividly remember, he was in the Sistema Youth Orchestra, and it was Saturday morning at 7 a.m, practicing his clarinet, and I was like, let me sleep. But who practices at 7 a.m. clarinet?
That's true, yeah.
El Sistema kids, because it's so much fun.
That's the word.
Yeah,
That's the word. It's fun. We've forgotten that classical music is fun.
Yes.
And this is something that's really, really important. We've got to remember this. At my concerts, whenever I can, there's a toast afterwards. Because classical music, I really honestly believe you can't just go in there and you have the programs in your hand and you're not supposed to even wave them because it might make noise. You know, you need to sit there and you need to enjoy it, and you need to afterwards mingle with the people and have a really good time. And I think when you start doing this, people come back.
Yeah.
You know, because it was made to be fun. It was made to be an adventure. I mean, I heard the other day that, you know, it was in the Metropolitan Opera. They said that Handel was the rock star of his age. And remember, you know, people used to swoon in Liszt concert. When was the last time somebody swooned in a classical music concert, right? So if we could bring that back, and make it really fun, and we can do that now with videos, and we can do that now with live streaming. We can do crazy different things that will take us out of the museums and bring us back into the real world.
There's definitely a kind of veering towards classical music being very serious. And I think I would say partly this is a result of a lot of academic study of music, and this sort of, especially in the 20th century, this is kind of where the artists become these idols of not just performing, but also idols of intellectual and compositional brilliance. And we've kind of lost this idea of, like you say, fun and play, and just appreciating it for the beauty. So that's a really good reminder. And with that, actually, speaking of beauty and play, why don't we play your clip, Kathy? I'd love to hear your Libertango. And do you want to introduce this piece as well as this performance to us?
Actually, this is a funny recording, because I was doing a tour of Thailand. We raised about the equivalent in dollars. It was about $57,000 for charities with a trio, because what I really believe is that the smaller the group, you could do the same type of publicity and get the same type of results. And so this was right before a huge dinner for about 70 different countries. And they asked us at the last minute. So we're like, okay, we got to finish fast and then we got to go. And it turned out to be the absolute best recording we did during the entire tour. It was for the conservatory in Bangkok. And it was really fun to be able to play for those children that were there. So
wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Look forward to hearing it. Wow! Well,
beautiful.
Bravo, yeah. Wonderful performance. So that's amazing. That you, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love to play. I absolutely love to play. I mean, all the work that I do for publicity is just to get to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I think that's the whole goal of it, to spread our music as far as possible, but in the end, it's because we love sharing it to begin with. Yeah. And so we're talking about sharing. I want to kind of wrap up this really fun conversation with the virtual world. And so, Kathy, you've been doing a lot of this, and maybe one of the things we can do is actually talk about the competition, the Sound Específico Global competition. We've extended our deadline to December 10th, so we're hoping more people will be able to apply and get in on this. It's a very brilliant competition where we combine live performance but also on the virtual world. And what does that mean? So there's you have this no time limits for semi-finalists and finalists, which means you can program large works, you can program as much as you want, you can play entire programs, concerti, and there's no restriction for you, and we'll just broadcast it, and as judges we'll sit there and listen until you're done. With no repertoire requirements, this is something that's, I think, allows for musicians to have the freedom. Last week we interviewed some composers, living composers, and I think what's beautiful about that is you can program a lot of works by living composers. You can program works that maybe are not very heard often, but you don't feel like it would fit in a normal, I guess, a traditional competition program, or you want to try out a different sets of programs to see what would work for you. I think no repertoire requirements means that you can actually discover your own voice. You can say, okay, what happens when I program, Mozart and Schoenberg together? What does that sound like? Do I like that? Do I like? Or what if I put a lot of Baroque dances with tangos? How does that sound? And so I think it's a very freeing way to discover yourself. And the last thing is, because it is virtual, the judges will be there to give you comments right away, right afterwards. And I think that's one of the important things about a competition, that you actually get some feedback. So immediate feedback from a jury member is something we pride ourselves in. And so if you're watching and you haven't applied yet and you want to play for people, this is a brilliant opportunity. We have over $100,000 worth in value for prizes, including our Classlcal Academy, which is sponsoring a lot of prizes for our contestants, and with all these courses. And it's hard to put a number on the value. So what happened last year was one of our contestants managed to connect with some composer who then had a project which connected her to 30 other composers, and it's hard to put a number on what these collaborations are worth. And for example, if you decide to make a connection with someone from Latin America and they offer you a tour, how do you put a value on that kind of prize? And so this is something that's really valuable. And the last thing is, just like this conversation, everything is broadcasted live. And speaking of broadcasting live, Kathy, you've done a lot of concerts live, and you've changed your background. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience performing online, and whether you've enjoyed it, or what has that allowed you to do differently?
Well, it's funny. I was studying marketing right when COVID hit. And one of the classes I was taking said that you can stay the same and you can leave your house in 3 weeks the same person that you came into your house. Remember when it was 3 weeks, remember? Or you can use those 3 weeks to study and become the different person that's waiting for you outside. And another thing he said was, you just got to stare at that green button. You just got to stare at it and just get used to it. And this is your new kind of audience. And so what I did, the first thing I did was I bought a green screen, and I would record with the green screen. And then I went to paintings, and I spent a lot of time in India getting original paintings, and I would play with the paintings. And so I would play with the green screen, and then I would put whatever painting I felt like behind it. So actually this whole streaming thing has brought up a new dimension for me, because we can start being much more visual than we used to be. It takes a little work. But it's amazing. On my YouTube channel, there's a Mozart sonata. I took paintings from the Metropolitan Museum. There's a lot of works there that you can use royalty free, and I put paintings from Mozart's time behind me while I'm playing. And so you can do amazing different things, and so people are drawn in visually as well. That's something you need when you're doing something from a computer and it's not live. So it's a whole new dimension. I think it's really fun. It's kind of like, the videos from the 70s when they were starting to make rock videos. We're 50 years behind. We can do amazing classical videos in the same way that they were doing the first rock videos in the 60s, 70s.
What I really appreciate about you, Kathy, is that you're willing to embrace the new and to incorporate it even in the old. So it's not saying the old as in, but more in the traditional, like the music we play, which is old, which is a couple of years, 100 years prior. But you're able to bring it to the new audience, or bring it to a new medium. Irma, you're definitely doing a lot with that in iClassical. Gisela, I want to ask, is Sistema Global? And speaking of Sistema Global, we have the website below, which you can connect to and find out more about what they do. How are you using the virtual world to bring music to audiences or to musicians who are willing and wanting to learn?
Actually we are restarting our organization, rejuvenating, as I said. And one of the things that we are starting to create, and it's in the birth stage right now, but we're creating a online teaching platform. And we want it to be accessible as much as possible, so we want it to be in different languages, so that every different culture and every different tiny little El Sistema program in the smallest corner in the world can actually access it, and the teachers can access that. We want to serve the teachers and the students. We never want to, eliminate the program. We want to actually support them And with the online world, that is one of the first things that we do. We also have a long list of resources on our website that anybody can download. They're all for free. And that's one way that we can, again, support the El Sistema vision so that it's a lot more accessible and in a much faster way than in the older times before online work.
Definitely. We need to bring a lot of our beauty and our knowledge and everything to the virtual world so people can appreciate and learn more. I think the experience online can be just as good, especially if we can do it right and do it well. Irma, I want to ask if you could finish us with some final remarks, and especially on the comment of being online and doing all this online work, but also your relationship with Sound Expressivo Global Competition, and you could talk to us about why you're still so invested in giving us prizes and your idea of what the virtual world will hold.
Ooh, that's a lot of little questions in one bundle. Well, let's say that first of all, we find it very important to connect to other platforms who are bringing forth interesting and innovative projects like Sound Expressivo, like the virtual concert halls, which were born more or less because of the COVID situation, but I think right now they will stay forever and they will only grow and go further. The good thing is that with the Sound Expressivo competition, as you said before, it's an innovative concept, so you have feedback from the judges right away. There is no anymore that you go to a competition and you have no idea what the judges think, and if he wants to say or she wants to say what she thought about your performance, well, you're never sure if that was really what they thought. I don't have to tell you all these kind of things. So that's very positive and very good. And we find it important to support all these initiatives, Sound Expressivo, Virtual Concert Hall, also Sistema Global. We created this online platform. We're running since 6 years now, and we will move on. We have a lot of different things to offer. The online world is evolving all the time. We all know that. You have to stay on top all the time. There is always a change, always something new. It has to deal also a lot with marketing, with how musicians can present themselves. That's why we also offer music and career, which is important for the Sound Expressivo participants, but it's also important for El Sistema teachers or students or whoever who wants to be active in the music field. And this I don't have to tell Kathy, because she is practicing and doing this already for many years.
Absolutely.
She knows the importance of that. And so I think the online world will only grow. It will not be the only thing that we have. I mean, we will still have physical concert. It will still be, living next to each other. But there are a lot of advantages. And the most beautiful thing that I find is that I cannot give you my experience of performing online because I'm not a performer, but I can give you my experience as audience online. What I like about audience online is that if you go to a concert hall, which is a beautiful experience, especially when you have a wonderful concert hall and you have all these people sitting around you, but you will never know or hardly know where they're from. Nobody will tell you, hey, I'm from Mexico. Hey, I came from Spain. If you watch an online concert performance, it's so nice. Everybody starts to write, oh, this is beautiful. I'm from Spain. Oh, I love it so much. I'm from there and there. So in 5 minutes, you know already half of the audience where they come from. And this I find really, it's a new, for me, it's a new extra value. Yeah.
I don't think the virtual and the real world going hand in hand will take away from one another. I think there are benefits of both, and I think that's we need to take advantage of what the online world can bring and the virtual world can bring for audiences without sacrificing our desire to perform live, which I think ultimately is still a very intimate and beautiful experience. And so with that, I want to thank all three of you, Kathy, Gisela, Irma, for being on the show today. This has been such a pleasure for me to talk to you. You're all so inspiring, and I love that you're linking performance and music and your love for the music with philanthropy, with non-profit work, helping others and helping musicians, and going to areas of the world that traditionally a lot of people may think, oh, that's probably not as economically developed. But I think for all the love of music that's there, I think that's more rich and more beautiful than any sort of economic power or growth. So with that, I want to thank you again. Thank you for being on the show. I'll be amiss without thanking also our producers, Ante Botrukujic, who is our producer for today. We also want to thank everybody in the Sound Specific board and all the people who are behind the scenes, and Fedor Osmansky as well, who for checking our tech. Thank you so much for all the work that you do in making sure that this broadcast works. We also want to thank History of Music for sponsoring us. You guys are so amazing for spreading our broadcasts everywhere and for helping us with cross-posting and everything social media related. And of course, Fan for Me, which is sponsoring 5 of our prizes this competition. So if you haven't applied, our deadline is coming up December 10th, and we really encourage you to check out our competition. And this is a really incredible time. Our website is just below. Thank you, Ante. And you could join us. And we're also on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on Facebook, we're everywhere. So join us, be a part of this virtual world, and guarantee you won't regret it. And with that, thank you again for joining us. Thank you. Wow. Until next time, we are actually, for the month of November, this will probably be one of our last broadcasts. And so for all our audiences, thank you again. December, we'll have our semi-final rounds, but before that, we may organize some more broadcasts as well. So keep checking us, and we'll keep you updated. All right, see you soon. Thank you, everybody.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Expressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.